Good afternoon, class 12th. Today we again continue with the principles and processes of biotechnology, children. And in this, if you remember, in the first video that we had done together, in the previous video, in video 9, we studied about the ELISA technique and its two principles we studied about. We studied two methods of enzyme immunoassay, and one was the double antibody sandwich procedure for the detection and measurement of antigen. The other one we studied was indirect microplate ELISA procedure. If you remember these diagrams, then these were the diagrams, children, we looked at. This diagram talked about the double antibody sandwich method, and when we followed this diagram and we studied about it, this talked about the indirect microplate ELISA method. So we saw how we can see the measurement, or we can calibrate the amount of measurement of antigen or the measurement of antibody inside the fluids of various organisms. So we followed these two methods, and today we will continue with the immobilization of enzymes. What is the meaning of immobilization, children? Immobilize means something which is unable to move, or something which is unable to show any kind of movement or fluctuation. So today we will continue with immobilization of enzymes. What are enzymes? Enzymes are biological catalysts which start and accelerate thousands of biochemical reactions in living cells. And if you remember, children, that we studied about enzymes, their substrates, and about the enzyme substrate complex, and about the products. Here is what we studied in class 11th. Children, if you remember, we had studied about enzyme, we had studied about the substrate, we had studied about the intermediate complex that was formed, and then we had studied that the enzyme, after it helps in the reaction, then it does not take any further part, but it detaches itself and the products are formed. So if you remember this mechanism in the Lock and Key hypothesis, which we did together, given by Emil Fischer last year in class 11th. So we go on forward from this knowledge that the properties of enzymes, these are unstable molecules. What are enzymes, children? They are unstable molecules with a definite physiological and physiochemical organization. What are enzymes, children? They are unstable molecules with a definite physiochemical organization. And even slight change in the organization reduces the activity of the enzyme. And sometimes the enzyme is totally inactivated by the slight change in the organization. If you remember the factors that covered the enzymes, we had studied about several factors that affect enzyme activity, and temperature was one of them. If you remember, children, we had studied about these, about the substrate concentration, the factors affecting enzyme activity. Then we had studied about enzyme concentration, temperature. We had studied these factors, and we had seen in class 11th during the study of enzyme chapter how the enzymes, they are affected, or enzyme inhibitors are there. Either the substrate becomes much and how the enzyme acts accordingly, or the enzyme is more and the substrate provision is less, then how the enzyme behaves. Then we had also learned about the hydrogen ion concentration or the pH, that it is also important for the enzymes to work properly. So we see that these are some of the things that are included in the property of enzymes. Even slight change in the organization reduces the activity of enzymes, and sometimes the enzyme is totally inactivated. Now we see that enzyme activity deactivation can be overcome by developing methods of stabilization. Enzymes activity, they become deactivated. Now this deactivated position of enzyme, these can be overcome by developing methods of stabilization, children. We said that enzyme or whole cell immobilization, here is the technique, is one of the such useful methods which are reported for the first time by J.M. Nelson and E.G. Griffiths in 1916. These two, they reported how enzymes or whole cell immobilization is useful. Now in this technique, what do we see? Technique was established between 1954 and 1961. Although this technique was first time reported by J.M. Nelson and E.G. Griffin, scientists, in 1916, but to develop this technique and establish this technique, this was done between 1954 to 1961. An immobilized enzyme is physically entrapped to an inert, insoluble matrix where it can act upon its natural substrate. The immobilized enzyme is physically entrapped to an inert, insoluble matrix. This enzyme, which was immobilized, it is trapped to an inert, insoluble matrix where it can act upon its natural substrate. Now, what is this matrix into which the immobilized enzyme are entrapped? What is this made of? Let us see our next step. The matrix is usually a high molecular weight polymer such as polyacrylamide, cellulose and starch. If you remember, we studied about this in class 11th. Let me show you once again and remind you, children, we studied about starch as one of the polymers of alpha D glucose. If you remember, in class 11th we studied about this, and also children, we studied about the structural pattern of a cellulose molecule. So this also we mentioned just now. This is what the matrix is made of, into which immobilized enzymes are trapped. Now, looking at immobilization of enzymes is performed under mild and controlled conditions. Immobilization of enzymes is performed under mild and controlled conditions. How? Immobilized enzymes offer certain advantage over soluble enzymes. Those enzymes which are soluble, those enzymes, they do not give an advantage, but the immobilized enzymes, they offer a certain advantage. How? The advantages include, let us see the advantages which immobilized enzymes they offer when they are put in a matrix. The advantages of the immobilized enzymes are they have higher stability. They are more stable than the soluble enzymes. Then the second advantage of immobilized enzymes that we see is the possibility of repeated use can be there. Then we see the third advantage, less chance of contamination is there of these immobilized enzymes. Then the fourth advantage we see here is easier recovery of the products that are formed. Easily we can remove the products from these immobilized enzymes. Now, some more advantage of using immobilized enzymes over free enzymes. Those enzymes which are free to use immobilized enzymes, there are a few more advantages. Let us look at them one by one. The immobilized enzymes, they protect against attack by proteases, which destroy the protein. Proteases, substances which destroy the protein. So immobilized enzymes, they protect against such an action by proteases. Then we see immobilized enzyme can be easily separated from the reaction mixture. So it can be easily reused by easily separating it from the reaction mixture. Then we see the third advantage of using immobilized enzyme. Some manipulations of enzymes, catalyzed reactions are better in immobilized form. So the catalyzed reactions are better in immobilized form rather than in free enzymes. Then we see that there is an example that reaction can be stopped. One of the examples of how immobilized forms of enzymes are better in catalyzed reactions, there is an example, children. Reaction can be stopped rapidly by removing enzyme from the reaction solution. So if we remove the enzyme from the reaction solution, and then we see reaction can be immediately stopped. And this can be done quickly, this can be done rapidly. So this is one of the benefits. Then we see another study of stem cells technology, which is very, very important from the board point of view. This is very important in boards, and this would be asked in boards, the stem cell technology. Now the stem cell treatment is a strategy which includes new cells into damaged tissue in order to treat diseases or injury. Thus we see that the stem cell technology, it is because of the ability of the stem cells to self-renew. Why stem cells are used, children? Because they have the ability of self-renewal. They do not need an assistance from outside to renew them, but they self-renew themselves, and they give rise to subsequent generations with variable degrees of differentiation and capabilities. So not only can they self-renew, but the stem cells are used because they give rise to subsequent generations of cells, new and strong cells with variable degrees of differentiation. That means these cells are not only simple, but they have variable degrees of differentiation and capabilities to renew themselves, capabilities to remove the damaged tissue and take the place of the damaged tissue. These offer significant potential for generations of tissues that can potentially replace diseased and damaged areas in the body. We see that the stem cells offer significant potential for generations of tissues that can potentially replace diseased and damaged areas in the body. In the recent past, we see bone marrow and umbilical cord. Which stem cells are being used, children? Recent past, bone marrow and umbilical cord blood stem cells are used to treat cancer patients for conditions like leukemia and lymphomas. So these are the conditions in which the blood cells can be replaced by new stem cells that we get either from the umbilical cord or from the bone marrow. Then we see that technology is also used for treatment of severe autoimmune diseases, such diseases which break the immune system of our body. So these severe autoimmune diseases, one of them is AIDS. This can be treated latest by the stem cell technology. So this is one of the important areas. Then children, let us come to more applications of biotechnology in agriculture. Up till now we had been speaking mostly about how they help in humans or they help in animals. But let us take in plants in agriculture. The conventional plant breeding methods like hybridization, mutation and selection are no more used, as these have their limitations, children. So now recent progress in tissue culture and genetic engineering of crop plants has made it possible so that we get more advancements in biotechnology to help farmers in agriculture. For example, let us take the first one. Achieve large-scale rapid multiplication of genetically uniform animals from elite specimens. Those specimens which are value-based, those specimens which are already good in their nutrient value. So we can achieve large-scale and rapid multiplication of such uniform plants, genetically uniform plants from elite specimens. We can get multiple copies of these. Then we see several novel means new and improved variety using soma clonal variation technology, wherein we can clone the cells, and by cloning of the cells we can produce improved variety of the agricultural plants, agricultural grains, so that we can feed our people of our country. Then we see that also biotechnology develops new hybrids between different cultivars and species by means of protoplasm fusion. So when we see the protoplast fusion takes place, by protoplast fusion of various species, new hybrids are made, and by making of new hybrids we get more of food production, more of value based nutrient food production. And then we see we use recombinant DNA techniques to introduce new and desirable genetic traits into plant cells. These achievements have generated a considerable optimism for the future generations, for the growth and potential of agriculture, because we have to feed our teeming millions. Every time our populations are increasing by millions. So to feed them, we need recombinant DNA technology, which enhances the desirable trait that is required in the plants. Whatever best food value we want, the pest resistant value we want, all those desired values can be added to the plants. Then we see why genetic modification are carried in plants. Let us quickly see 5 of its points. We know that GMO or genetically modified organisms are plants, bacteria, fungi, and animals whose genes have been altered by manipulation. The genetic modification in plants are carried due to following reasons. Now, why GMOs are made? Crops more tolerant to stresses. You know that in the previous times, the crops they used to die because of pala mar jata tha. There was low temperature, crops used to die. So because of lot of heat, the crops used to come under stress. So cold, heat, etc. All these stresses they are overcome by making the crops more tolerant to their environment. Then we see there is reduced reliance on chemical pesticides previously, but now BT toxins are developed, which are biotechnological toxins that are developed so that we can overcome the pesticide problem. Then we see we have to reduce post-harvest losses after the losses after the harvesting was done. Many of the crops they could not be kept long and to keep their shelf value. So post-harvest losses have been prevented by increasing the shelf value by GMOs or genetically modified organisms. Then we see the fourth one, increased efficiency of mineral usage by the plants. There is an increased efficiency of mineral usage by plants. The minerals can be easily utilized, efficiently utilized by plants, which was not possible earlier without the GMOs. Now the fifth good thing that we see the modifications carry in plants is biofortification. What is biofortification, children? The value of food that can be placed, foods with and plants and rice like golden rice, golden basmati, where there is more nutrient value, more vitamins, more of the food value is there. So the biofortification is done through GMO technology. So the children, we will close this video here. I hope you have enjoyed and understood it well. Have a good day. Thank you.